there's one thing that I've seen across the board with these set of women is that they don't tend to like to see themselves for who they truly are and what they're feeling, that emotional landscape. When they tap into that part, that is probably the hardest job they've ever done in their lifetime. Like, building a business, being a CEO, all of that may have been very easy, but just tapping into themselves and just looking at how, strangely enough, the resentment that they're feeling is the thing that is driving their success.
Welcome back to the You Need a Counselor podcast. This is a show presented by Heart and Solutions Counseling Agency. We release new episodes every Sunday at 5 p.m. Central and encourage you to batch up that laundry, put away the dishes, plan for the week ahead, or do any other task that might seem daunting while you give our show a listen. You might just be encouraged to call your therapist, connect with this week's guest, or seek out those services you've been considering for a while but haven't made the commitment to yet. If you are in the state of Iowa and are in need of mental or behavioral health counseling, give us a call at 1-800-531-4236. Enjoy the show.
Hello, welcome back to the You Need a Counselor podcast. My name is Dr. Julie Johnson. I'm the president and founder here at Heart and Solutions, Mental Health and Behavioral Health Counseling in Iowa.
And I'm Chrissa Hunt. I am our vice president in charge of the Behavioral Health Department. And this is our podcast, You Need a Counselor. So we are designed for people curious about counseling, but have barriers keeping them from experiencing the benefits of counseling. Our mission is to share stories about counseling, good, bad, and indifferent, and spread the message that everyone can benefit from mental health and behavioral health counseling services.
All right, our guest today is a friend of the show. She is a frequent guest, a frequent co-host of the show, just one of our favorite people to have on the show and discuss things with. Very, very multifaceted person in terms of the services that she's providing, but also just in terms of the way that she thinks about things in the world. So we're very, very excited to have Caurel Richards back with us today. You've heard her a lot as a co-host recently, but we're excited to have her back as our main guest today. Caurel was named one of Canada's top 100 Black women to watch in 2023. She is a 2025 RBC Canadian Woman Entrepreneur Award nominee. She is a trailblazer. She works with people to help transform their lives as a hypnotherapist and as a mentor to others. Through deep intuitive work, she helps her clients to break free from patterns that keep them stuck. She works with those things that are happening in our subconscious, not just in our conscious brain. We can get so into our own cognitions. We can get so into our own heads. And the fact of the matter is, when we're thinking about things, we're only seeing a very small percentage of what our body is processing and what our mind is processing. So we are very, very excited to talk to Caurel again and learn more about the services that she's providing. Welcome, Caurel.
Yay, we almost didn't make it.
Technology, you never know with technology. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing when it works.
Yes, when it works, when it wants to work. But I'm glad we got through it. We found other solutions, and here we are. We're about to have an amazing conversation.
That's what life is about. Life is about taking what comes, acknowledging that that's what's happening, and moving forward with it. And as we're every single day, we're coming across challenges, we're coming across conflicts, and things that don't go our way. And there's no way to control whether our computer is going to work for us in the morning, but there is a way to control what we do when that happens. And what you did when that happened was you showed your persistence, and you showed your creativity, and you showed your ability to be open to using the resources around you to get to that result that you were looking for. And that's all we can do as people, right? Is adapt and continue on towards that goal.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's something, our conversation that I believe needs to be had, especially in this time, because there's so many things happening, so many things essentially out of our control that adaptability, I know it's the one thing that has allowed me to get to where I'm at, because if it was left to me, I'd be very frustrated because there are a lot of things that I wanted to happen that haven't happened. And if I had focused more on the things that didn't happen, then maybe life would have been a little bit lackluster, right? And I think sometimes what happens is that we miss the blessings that happen in those moments where things don't happen. I have this belief that says, what if what if it didn't work out, but it did actually work out? So the thing that you wanted to work out didn't work out, but something else beyond that was working out. And I think that's kind of what gets me through my life's journey. And that's also something that I instill in the services that I offer, because it's life, right? There's no sense in fighting it, because at the end of the day, you're actually making it harder for you than making it better for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know it's been a while since we've talked to you as a guest on our podcast. Can you kind of review what services you do offer? I know Julie mentioned you're a hypnotherapist and a mentor. What specific clientele do you usually work with?
For the most part, I work with high performing women. They don't tend to struggle with performing, obviously, but what they tend to do is to struggle with the emotional aspect, right? So that's something that from day one I've worked with, is just the emotion, just the stories that we've been telling ourselves, right? And I think I've gotten to a point in the services that I offer that it's now taking responsibility, because this whole life journey is essentially a grieving process, right? There are some things that we got that we wanted, there's some things that we didn't get that we wanted, but it's how do we take all those life experiences and make them work for us, right? So maybe your parent wasn't in your life the way how you wanted them to, but maybe them not being there allowed for you the space, the opportunity, the experience to do things and to make a life based on what you needed for your path, not based on what you were told, based on, maybe a neighbor, they had everything that you probably wanted. It's really and truly looking at what you were gifted, the opportunities that you were gifted, to now turn them into something for you to build a new story, as opposed to a story that obviously isn't working for you. And it's allowing for them to tap into those emotions and reconciling with those emotions to allow them to actually live with more integrity and not avoiding their emotions, because they tend to do that a lot.
Yeah, there's a Garth Brooks song called Unanswered Prayers, and it's probably one of the only country songs I know, but I know like 10 country songs, but that one I really love because whole song is about, hey, I thought my life was going to go this way and it didn't, and how painful that was. But looking back on it years later, being able to say, oh, yeah, that was an unanswered prayer, and that was one of the greatest gifts, right? That we could have. And so, the truth is that as humans, we are terrible at predicting what's going to make us happy. We're horrible at we we think that we know, hey, if I could just get this kind of job, if I could just get this kind of car, if I could just have this kind of marriage, if I could just have this kind of family, then
Yeah.
everything would be fine and I would be happy. And we're horrible at predicting that, because as soon as we get the thing that we want, the reality of it sets in and we go, oh, I don't feel the way I thought I was going
Yeah,
to feel.
exactly.
We see that a lot with weight loss surgeries, and with when people find that, okay, I'm at this ideal weight that for my whole life I thought if I could just look this way, or if I could just be this weight, I would feel this confidence, I would feel this whatever it is. And then it's even more challenging to go through that process when we go, oh, it's not how I thought it was going to be. I don't feel the way that I thought I was going to feel when I hit
Yeah.
that goal. So we're terrible at it. And the best thing that we can do is we can make that guess, and right or wrong, we can make that guess, and we need to have goals and purpose as humans. So we can go forward towards those goals and those things that we think are going to lead to fulfillment. But at the same time, we've got to be really intentional about noticing when we
Yep.
might be on the wrong path. We have to be really intentional about not getting tunnel vision onto a certain outcome or a certain
Yep.
goal. And noticing the way that, oh, okay, in reality, this is turning out this way, and that's okay. Now I know that. At least I know that going forward. So, what are some of those kinds of things that, especially when you're talking about high achieving women? High achieving women have there's so much that comes with that, and there's so many things that are invisible to society that high achieving women cope with because they're high achieving, and society measures how well are you doing by your achievements. It doesn't, society doesn't necessarily measure how well you're doing on how you're feeling when you wake up in the morning, how you're feeling when you lay down to try to go to sleep at night.
Yeah.
But those measures are so important. So what are some of those, what are some examples of those things that that high achieving women might kind of aim towards and get tunnel vision for, and
Yeah.
then go have a difficult time pivoting and readjusting?
So the one thing that's coming to my mind with even everything that you just said, there's a lot of resentment, right? I think as high achieving women, high performing women, we grind, right? And I say we because I'm a part of that group, which is probably why I decided to work with them predominantly, is that we hustle. That's the word. It's the hustle culture. And we're doing so much because sometimes the thing that we're doing so much too is also a coping mechanism, right? And it's calling out that behavior to be like, why I work so hard is because when it gets a little bit too quiet, when it gets a little bit too calm, when there's no chaos, I now have to face myself, right? So I think there's one thing that I've seen across the board with these set of women is that they don't tend to like to see themselves for who they truly are and what they're feeling, that emotional landscape. When they tap into that part, that is probably the hardest job they've ever done in their lifetime. Like, building a business, being a CEO, all of that may have been very easy, but just tapping into themselves and just looking at how, strangely enough, the resentment that they're feeling is the thing that is driving their success. And how do you separate from the resentment and still be this high performing woman, which essentially has been your label for so long? How do you separate from that? And then that's where the grieving process comes in. Like I said, life is a grieving process in itself. But then how do you separate yourself from that label of being who you are and what you've achieved and you've gotten this far? But the thing that has drove you to that is the thing that's also harming you. So it's the cognitive dissonance of it all. And it's working through it to say, hey, yeah, maybe that was the thing that was the driving force. But dealing with this means that actively have participation in your life. It's not you get up every morning just to do because the resentment and the anger and the frustration is the thing that's saying I have to do more. It's now that you get up and you choose if you want to do it. And that's where the free will comes in. And that's where we get to once we recognize that the resentment has been sitting there for however many years.
And you mentioned a lot of your clients also struggle with like avoiding their emotions and obviously focusing probably more on work and what I need to get done and not thinking about themselves and how they feel right now. How do you work with clients on getting more comfortable with recognizing their emotions and expressing those?
I think it takes time, if I'm being honest with you. The first time is going to be a fight. I already know that. I'm almost prepared for it. What I've noticed is that they tend to intellectualize their feelings, right? So you'll say, okay, how did that make you feel? It's like, it made me feel like I'm a loser, or I'm just like, okay, so what emotion is coming up for you? And it goes into intellectualizing it again. I'm like, okay, so how are you feeling about saying, or in fact, what I've heard recently, I don't want to say I'm sad, but then they go into intellectualizing it. So I look at that, I'm like, okay, so you're saying that you felt sad. You don't want to acknowledge that you were feeling sad, but let's be honest, you were feeling sad, you know? So it's an example like that. It's just like accepting that, yes, you were sad and it's okay to be sad. And being sad doesn't mean that you're weak. Being sad doesn't mean that you're not enough. Being sad is just saying, hey, I'm human and I'm feeling this emotion right now, and that sadness is telling me what? And it's navigating the story and going from that. And then the more we get to do it, is the more they're able to name the emotion, because I think the biggest struggle is naming the emotion, right? So it's not just necessarily only feeling it, it's naming it so you can actually navigate through it and then taking the necessary steps after.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sometimes that because of the vulnerability that it takes to acknowledge an emotion, we've been, I think, not all of us, right? But a lot of us, we've been trained from childhood to not acknowledge, not to act on our emotions because our emotions make us do things like cry or be loud or disobey, right? Or take up time from other people, right? Like and they stop us from doing the things we're expected to do when we act on them as a child. And so then as we become women and adults, we go, I, I, it feels very vulnerable to act on. Even saying I feel sad is acting on a feeling. And if we felt like we could not rely on the people around us to support those emotions or to acknowledge those emotions, then even saying something or acknowledging to myself, I feel sad, puts us in a very vulnerable position because now we've put it out there. We've acknowledged to ourselves, maybe I need somebody to acknowledge my sadness. Maybe I need to say to somebody, I feel sad. And I'm not allowed to do that, right? Or I'm not going to get support when I do that, right? That message of it's got to be me, so I've got to move forward through these things. I can't acknowledge those feelings because it makes me vulnerable. It takes away my ability to do all the things and juggle all the things and achieve all the things that I'm supposed to achieve. Um,
Yeah.
and you talked about resentment as a driver, and I love that. I felt that when you said it. Resentment as a driver and fear as a driver, those two kind of in connection. And sometimes it can feel like healing, healing resentments, right? Practicing forgiveness techniques. A lot of people have a really hard time with forgiveness techniques, right? Because it can feel like if I do healing work on myself, if I work through the resentment that I'm feeling, if I work through the fear that I'm feeling, and I give up that fear, I give up that resentment, who am I now when I'm not being, and what's going to make me get up and go to work tomorrow, right? Like if we are in exhaustion, but we're doing all the things still, we're still highly performing. Sometimes that resentment and that fear can feel like it's the only thing getting us out of bed in the morning. It's the only thing making us do the tasks that we need to do to survive. And so that vulnerability absolutely speaks to me when you say that.
It's tough though, and here's the thing, because it's like this revolving door, right? You are raised by emotionally immature parents who don't teach you or give you the tools that you need to become emotionally mature. So you essentially stay stunted for the rest of your life until you decide, right? Because again, that story can only last for so long, right? You mentioned, at some point we become adults, maybe in body, maybe on paper, maybe the number that we assign to ourselves based on when we were born. But emotionally, a lot of us don't grow up, right? A lot of us don't take responsibility, and we think avoiding the feelings and not acknowledging it is the way, because that's what was taught to us, right? So they're like, don't mention it, because it's going to cause a ruckus. And again, it's understanding the environment initially that we had started in is essentially a contributing factor to where most of us are today, is because we weren't given those tools. Again, it is our responsibility moving forward to be like, yeah, this is obviously not working. Yeah, my identity, but do I really want my identity to be attached to pain? Like, yes, pain is inevitable in life, but suffering isn't. And I know that you're suffering when you're sitting in that resentment, when you're sitting in that fear. and there's things in reach. And as much as they're right there, you can't get to it because of that fear, because of that resentment, and it's costing you, right? So it's looking at it as, what is the opportunity cost for staying emotionally immature, right? And not taking responsibility or ownership of my life anymore. It means that I'm missing out on the beautiful parts of life that I am guaranteed by just making this one change, right? It's such a beautiful experience to see these women go from, walking in, not even wanting to name it, to walking out and saying, you know what? Because I said this to this person, whether or not I was emotionally outraged or not, I expressed it. And over time, it's not going to be perfect at first, because just like a child when they're just as young, it's not clean, right? It's still messy. And it's allowing yourself to go through the messiness and know that you're not going to stay there, because the more you build that muscle, the more you build that capacity to have these difficult conversations and experience these difficult emotions, is the easier it gets. And that's the one thing that I even feed off of for myself, is knowing that, okay, I'm here today, but I won't be there next week, or I won't be there next year. And it's having that faith and understanding that it's a journey, right? It's not about perfection. And I think the first thing that we have to do is to let go of perfection, and understand that your identity is it's not those things that you've achieved. Like, I've heard it so many times, people don't remember you for the things, that you've done. It's really how you made them feel. And if you're cold, if you're just not connected, you're just disconnected throughout life, then is it worth it? Is it worth it?
So you work mostly with high performing women, and obviously, like we talked about, they don't want to admit emotions or probably admit that they need help. How do you get clients to come to your services and realize they do need help and that they are struggling with being high performing or struggling with emotional immaturity? How do clients like start to reach out to you to kind of start to work through that?
I don't get them to do nothing. I don't get them to do nothing. One thing I have learned being in this space is just being authentically who I am, right? It's having these real conversations and not having the conversations that I remember. There was a post that I saw yesterday. It's like, oh, you gotta, not take things personally. And I'm like, do you know how hard that is? We live in a world where we were taught to take everything personally. We were taught that when somebody says something and it hurts, it's because they're trying to hurt you. So when you just say, just in a black and white way of saying, hey, don't take things personally, don't let your emotions be the thing that decides, I agree. But also, I think there are intentional steps that we have to take as well. It's understanding that, yes, you're going to take it personal. It's also stopping in your tracks and saying, okay, is the story that I'm telling myself about what this person is doing even true? How am I going to know if it's true or not? Maybe I need to have a hard conversation with this person. And I do mean it's going to be hard the first time, because it's going to be icky, it's going to feel uncomfortable. So I think it's me just expressing it the way that I express it and just being authentic and real about it, because it's not so black and white. There's so many nuances, there's so many experiences that we've had in life that I can't just say, hey, you can't be this way because it's just not acceptable, and not realize that we're human beings and we're a little flawed.
Yeah, and I think when people say don't take something personally, I mean it is a very minimizing statement. It definitely attempts to minimize the hurt that we might be feeling when somebody crosses a boundary with us, or is derogatory towards us. And I think what they're trying to say when they say don't take things personally is actually the opposite. I think what they're trying to say is take things interpersonally and not personally. So if I take something personally, then I'm looking at my side of it only and not acknowledging the other person's challenges that may have led them to do the thing that was harmful to me. But if I take it interpersonally, then I'm not only looking at myself. So if somebody comes up and says, you are a terrible podcast host, right? I can go, if I take that personally, then I'm looking at it just as myself, right? I'm not
Right.
bringing into the discussion in my head the factors that have to do with the other person. If I'm looking at it interpersonally, right? Because any interaction like that is an interpersonal interaction. And so if
Yep.
I look at the other person as well, not to fault find with them, but to say, okay, what motivation do they have to say that to me? Right? What's the dynamic between us, right? What are they needing that they're getting out of saying that to me? That didn't happen, but if it did happen, this is what I'd have to do, right? Because that would feel very hurtful to me. And if somebody said, well, don't take that personally, I can't, because I'm part of it, right? I'm a person, so I'm going to take it personally. I am part of that interaction, and I'm hurt by that interaction. When you were saying that, there's a Taylor Swift lyric that I go back, it plays just in my mind constant. Are you a Taylor Swift fan at all, Caurel?
Not really.
I know
No.
Chrissa is.
And the problem is me. That's the only
that one's good. That one's good. I like that one. That one's a good personal responsibility one. The other one is from Tortured Poets Department. It's from Who's Afraid of Little Old Me, which is like lives in my head theme music. But it says, so tell me everything's not about me, but what if it is? And then they say they didn't do it to hurt me, but what if they did? And I mean, that like just constantly lives in my head sometimes because it opens up the door. It opens up that door of thought for me. If something happens that's interpersonal, to say, yeah, the platitude says they didn't do that on purpose. They didn't try to hurt you, right? Like they're just upset, whatever it is. But it opens up that door to like, but what if they did? And even if they did, what is that interpersonal way of thinking about it where I can acknowledge the fact that, yeah, they said that to me. They knew that was going to hurt my feelings, right? I think that's the piece that's sometimes missing is that like when we minimize somebody else's experience and say, oh, they didn't mean it. They were just joking, right? They weren't actually going to do what they said they were going to do. Then we go, yeah, but what if they did? Can I still, as a person, cope with that? Can I still, as a person, experience that feeling, right? And not let it impact me going forward, even if they did do it to hurt me, even if it was a personal attack. And so I love that part, and it really did bring that to mind because I think there's that missing step in our thought process.
I think if we continue to look at things on a physical plane, and when I say physical plane, and I mean not considering a bigger picture, right? Because I don't know if you guys are into spirituality. I think some of the things that we experience are necessary, and I'll give you some context. So when I was about 2, my father decided to abandon is the word that I would use before, but he decided to make a decision to go to the States and left my mother and I in Jamaica. And I think for years I had a story that would say, oh, he rejected us, and because he rejected us, everybody else is going to reject me. No, I'm now 37, and I look back at that experience and having the full story of what he was really, truly trying to do. I now understood that for me, if my dad was present, I wouldn't have become this person that I am. And I know it's a very bold statement, but it's a true statement. And here's why it's true. My father is the person that wants to tell you what to do, how to do it. It has to be this way. And I'm an individual that needs to have free range. I need to be able to just go out and do things, make my own mistakes, have my own experiences. And I understand that in this day and age, if I was to have him around, that I wouldn't become this person that I am. So I shared all of that to say that on a bigger level, and I know it's looking in hindsight that I can see this, and anyone that's listening, I'm hoping that maybe you can look in hindsight at one of those experiences that are still heavy on your heart that you wish may have not happened, but it happened and you can't change that. How can you look at it differently for it to be a part of the story of who you are today and how it actually played a role in who you are today and how you can allow it to define in a different way as opposed to you sharing the story of, oh well, I was rejected, oh I was abandoned, oh they didn't care, I didn't matter. That story, it isn't helping. I promise you, it isn't helping. So if you could reframe the story and say, you know what, because of this person's absence, I was able to learn to be a little bit more disciplined on my own, take responsibility for my life, grow in who I wanted to be, who I needed to be for my bigger path, my bigger purpose in this world. And it was worth it. I'm actually really glad. I'm really grateful that they weren't here.
How did you learn to change that story? So from like rejected and abandoned to change it to be more positive, and like what now when you think about it, what words do you use in place of abandoned instead?
I don't know if I would look at it as positive. I think it's more true, right? And it's more true because I have a better understanding of what my role is here on this in this planet, on this plane, my purpose, what I'm here to do. That I need to experience life in a way that I can actually relate to the person that I'm supporting, right? And if I had him, I wouldn't be able to relate to certain things. So I don't look at it as abandonment. I don't look at it as alignment. He did exactly what he was supposed to do for me to be able to experience life how I experienced it with the mother that I had, who supported me as best as she could, but also gave me free reign, right? So it allowed me to be this independent, bold, free spirited person, whereas maybe I would have been a little bit more resentful. So instead of saying that he abandoned me, he actually did me a favor. And it takes time to get here. I'm not going to sit here and pretend as if, it's this quick moment. It takes time to get here. And I use something called numerology to help me with that. It's with numbers. I'm a life path 5, which essentially has prepared me to be the free spirited, the change maker that I am. Like, I make my decisions, right? And that's just what it is. There's no changing that. There's no altering that. I am just who I am, and that's who I came to be. And with that understanding, it allowed me to reconcile that, hey, oh, so he wasn't supposed to be here, so I could get my free reign. And that's how I was able to release that story so effectively, so easily. And now I just live in accordance to what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I think it's such a fine line too between, um, there is kind of a narrative that says, hey, our trauma made us stronger or our trauma made us more able. And I absolutely do agree with that, but I think that there can be the flip side of that we can see where when we jump straight to that side of it, then sometimes we're not acknowledging the pain and trauma that did happen. And
Exactly.
because we are achievement task, how am I useful to other people so that I matter oriented, then it can be really tempting to jump all those phases
Right.
of like acknowledge that pain, feel it the way we felt it when we were 2, feel it the way that we felt it when we were 10, feel it the way that we felt it when we were 15 and didn't acknowledge it, right? Feel it, notice the
Yes.
way that it impacted our relationship with our high school boyfriend or girlfriend, right? Like just being able to, I think that what you're talking about is kind of that end result after that work. But I think that sometimes people have a tendency to want to skip to
Skip
that
it.
and
Yes.
go, okay, I'm not glad that that happened, but it made me, stronger, or it made me better, or it made me,
Yeah.
and I think that that's helpful for coping, as long as that under those pieces of acknowledgement are there, because without those, then those pieces just keep talking, and all those pieces keep talking,
Yeah.
and it actually like increases the cycle or amplifies the cycle then, because then it's like, well, I'm better for it, so now I can't feel upset about it because I'm
Yeah.
better for, right? I'm better for it. So
Yeah. In
absolutely. I think it's
stages,
so,
right? it's stages, and as we
Yeah.
had mentioned earlier, it's the stages with grief. Like at some point you're going to come to acceptance. So what I just demonstrated is the acceptance piece, but you're going to get pissed off. You're going to get angry, like you're going to go through all of those, right? And so what Julie just said is perfect, right? Take it in stages, don't skip the stages. And of course it's not a straight line, because nothing is ever really a straight line. It's understanding that, yeah, you're going to get to a space of acceptance with one thing, and then maybe you're going to get to the next stage, go right back to the stage of being pissed off, right? It's just allowing yourself to go through those stages, because all the stages are necessary for your ultimate growth.
Yeah, and we rewire our brain. We build new neurological pathways as we think those things for our automatic thought response. So when we have the situation where something comes up that triggers that, right? We feel rejected by somebody else. We feel rejected by the cashier that pulls the next person in line instead of us. When they open the next cash register, right? We feel that all these little things that happen, and we go, oh, they're choosing that person because I'm not worthy of being the next person, right? Now I'm resentful at that cashier.
Yeah.
And when those things come up, they're going to present themselves in so many different ways. And when we've done the work to be able to make the connection between it and then go to that new pathway of thought, then we can cope with that situation a lot better, and we can see it as an interpersonal exchange as opposed to a personal exchange.
Yeah. I think it requires a lot of honesty too, right? Because I think we tend to lie to ourselves because it makes us feel better. That feeling better is temporary. I'm going to pause and say that. That feeling better is temporary because it's coming back, right? That feeling is going to come back, and it probably is going to come back tenfold. So I think it's very, very, very important that we are honest with ourselves and face the truth. Face it. Because it's only through the truth that we're able to actually make intentional changes. And when we start making intentional changes, I don't even like saying the sky is the limit. I want to say you are your limit. You're your limit.
So as a highly performing woman yourself, like how are you able to work with other highly performing women to kind of break through some of those barriers that they have? I'm sure you're still struggling with it as a highly performing woman today, but like being able to work with them on that at the same time.
I think it's being transparent and being honest. It's not trying to paint it with this beautiful brush as it seems, to make it seem as if it's not perfection. Like I've gotten there and I'm never going to go back. It's being a human being. And I know that sounds so simple, but it really is just being a human being and saying, hey, I know what it feels like to be there. I know when your brain just doesn't want to shut off because it's being inspired, it has so many things it wants to do. And it's also saying, but hey, are you the one that's supposed to be doing it? Is this the time for you to be doing it? Maybe you want to pass it off to make space, to make room for things that actually light you up. Because I know you just want to do these things because it makes you feel accomplished, but that accomplishment is not necessarily a feeling. It's not a feeling. What it is, it's a coping mechanism, right? And do you want to continue just coping through life? Or do you want to be an active participant in your life and doing things that you actually want to be doing? It's just being real about it. You'll hear that theme throughout our conversation because I think that's where it starts. It's seeing the other person that is sitting across from me as flawed, as, having their own experiences, and viewing them from that lens as opposed to, oh, you need to be this perfect human being that society has told us that we need to be enough. It's knowing that you're already enough just sitting across from me. It's just how can we play around and how can we put a few of these puzzle pieces together so that you can actually not only think that you're good enough intellectually, but actually feel like you're good enough. Because that's the part that a lot of us struggle with, is feeling that we're good enough in our imperfection. and not realizing that, hey, it is because of our imperfection that makes us enough.
Yeah. When I go through a fear, for example, and I say, okay, I'm afraid that this thing is going to happen. And we're in unprecedented times. There's a lot to be fearful of right now. And so when I go through a fear and I say, okay, what am I afraid of happening? Okay, what's worse than that? Okay, what's worse than that, right? If that happens, okay, what's worse than that, right? Where does that lead? And it used to, for me, they used to all lead to death, right? So it would be like, I have to do a presentation for work. If I don't do well in that presentation, I could lose my job. Okay, well, then I could be homeless. Well, then I could not have food to eat and then I could die, right? Like that's where mine used to end, was like, well, then I'll die. And for me now, what it comes down to is because I had to be like, well, then I die. I have to be okay with the fact that if I don't do well in this presentation, that I could die. I have to be okay with the fact that I could die.
Time. Yeah.
Then it's like, well, what's after? What's worse than that? And what it always comes down to now is, well, I could die and it would be my fault. That was that when that came to me and I realized, oh, there are things I'm not afraid of, even though I could die, right? Like I'm not afraid of getting in a car and driving because yeah, I could die. I could die pulling out of my driveway. Uh, but would it be my fault? If it wouldn't be my fault, I'm not as afraid of it, right? And so when I realized that, I went, wait, I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of dying and having it be my fault. Well, why is that? Right? And so you kind of have to keep going, because a lot of times it'll come down to death, and then people will be like, oh, I got it. I get it. I understand why I'm afraid of this thing. It's because I don't want to die. Like, who wants to die, right? But it goes deeper than that.
Yeah.
Which was amazing to me. And I think a lot of people, when they get past that, well, death isn't the worst thing about it. Then that's when we really get into like, oh, okay, why is that more scary than death? Death and having it be my fault is more scary than dying. Why is that? Right. So we
Interesting.
really get into those subconscious pieces of our mind that, I mean, I turned 40 in February. I didn't know that until this year, right? That what's worse than that is dying and having it be my fault.
Wow.
So we keep digging is what I'm saying, because 10 years from now, if we're still doing the show, and I might have to be like, hey, guess what's worse than me dying and having it be my fault? Found out what that is. And we just
That
keep
is,
going.
well, that's interesting. And I think even you just mentioning it has me thinking, because right now I'm 5 days out from doing some major surgery, right? Which means I'm going to be out for a good month and a half. And I can definitely relate to the thought of, oh, well, if things don't go the way how they're supposed to go, I'm going to die. And I think my question, just like you, my question was, then did I do everything that I'm here to do? Like, that's my question. That's what's worse than death to me, is knowing that I didn't do all the things, and be all the things. So you're right. Like, and I'll say thank you in this moment to be like, oh, so even though I'm not afraid of death, because I've never really been afraid of death, what I'm afraid of is not living up to my full potential. Woo.
That's some vulnerability right there, Caurel. That
Whoa.
is,
Woo. Woo.
it's beautiful because you are in real time. You're one of the most authentic people that I have the pleasure of talking to when we talk to you. And it's because you're willing to go there. It's a beautiful thing to model that, because for somebody who needs help with that, to be able to see that you're doing it, you're willing to do it, and you're not going to ask somebody to do something that you're not willing to do.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I love your vulnerability so much. It's like one of my favorite things about you. Just a beautiful, beautiful example.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah.
Woo! The waterworks is coming, girl.
It's all right. I love
Oh,
it. I love it. It's so necessary, right? We got to feel those things. We have to. If we don't feel them, we don't know that they're there. I've cried plenty about dying and having it be my fault, right?
wow.
It's it we have to feel it. We have to. And you're doing it. I'm so proud of you. I am so proud of you.
Woo. Thank you. And I'm proud of you for even just expressing what you expressed, because I don't know if I would have gotten to where I'm at if you didn't say it the way that you said it. So thank you.
Yeah, you're amazing. We love having you on the show. Please come back soon. We have so much more to talk
I
about.
hope so.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, we love talking to you. We're out of time today, but Caurel, we love having you co-host. We love having you be a guest. We just appreciate who you are and what you're doing out there so much. And well, more than what you're doing out there, we just appreciate who you are. You're just beautiful, beautiful person inside and out, and we just love having you here and talking to you.
I'm Caurel Richards, and I need a counselor.
And I'm Chrissa Hunt.
And I'm Julie Johnson, and we need a counselor.
And so do you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the You Need a Counselor podcast. We are so grateful that you're here. Now, we want to hear from you. Text us or give us a call at 515-650-3231. You can also find and connect with You Need a Counselor on Facebook and Instagram. If you've enjoyed today's show, please take a moment to like, review, or leave a comment, as all of these things help others to find and benefit from the podcast as well. If you're in the state of Iowa and interested in mental health counseling or behavioral health intervention services, give us a call at 800-531-4236.